Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the greatest threat to your future is not failure? What if the thing standing between you and the life you dream about is not poverty, not rejection, not lack of talent, not bad luck, and not even the obstacles surrounding you? What if the greatest danger is that one day you become so comfortable with the life you have that you stop fighting for the life you could have? Think about that. There are people walking among us today who are alive, breathing, working, smiling, talking. But somewhere deep inside, they have already surrendered. They have buried dreams while their hearts are still beating. They have convinced themselves that this is just how life is. They have accepted limitation as destiny. And perhaps the most frightening thing is this: they don't even realize they have given up. Ladies and gentlemen, success is not simply about becoming rich. It is not about standing on a stage while thousands applaud. It is not about driving an expensive car, wearing expensive clothes, or having your name recognized by strangers. Success is something far deeper. Success is the transformation of the human being. It is the moment when the person you are becomes strong enough to meet the person you were meant to become. Every human being carries within them a hidden possibility. There is a version of you that is more courageous, more disciplined, more compassionate, more focused, more awake, and more powerful than the person you are today. But that person does not simply appear. You must build him. You must build her. You must descend into the difficult places within yourself. Confront the fears you would rather avoid. Face the weaknesses you would rather hide. And begin the uncomfortable work of becoming conscious of who you really are. Because the greatest journey you will ever take is not across a continent. It is not into space. It is not toward another person. It is into yourself. And that journey determines everything. There is a strange truth about life. We often spend years trying to change our circumstances while refusing to change ourselves. We blame the economy. We blame our childhood. We blame our parents. We blame our teachers. We blame society. We blame our circumstances. We blame the people who hurt us. And yes, sometimes those things truly matter. Sometimes life is unfair. Sometimes people are given burdens they never asked for. Sometimes the starting line is not equal. But there comes a moment when you must ask yourself a more powerful question. Given everything that has happened to me, what am I going to become? That question changes everything. Because you may not control where you started, but you can influence where you go. You may not control what someone did to you, but you can decide what you do with the pain. You may not control yesterday, but you have influence over what you do today. And today is where your future is being created. Look at your life carefully. The future does not arrive one day, like a visitor knocking on your door. It is assembled quietly. It is built in ordinary mornings. It is built in the decisions nobody sees. It is built when you wake up tired and still do what must be done. It is built when you say no to the temptation that could destroy your progress. It is built when you study instead of scrolling. It is built when you practice instead of complaining. It is built when you try again after embarrassment. It is built when you keep your promise to yourself, even though nobody else knows whether you kept it. That is where success lives, not in the spotlight. In the unseen hours, most people want the harvest, but they don't want to plant. They want confidence without discomfort. They want strength without resistance. They want wisdom without mistakes. They want success without sacrifice. But life does not work that way. A seed must disappear into darkness before it becomes a tree. And perhaps that is one of the great mysteries of human development. Sometimes you must enter your own darkness before you discover your light. Think about the difficult seasons of your life. Perhaps there was a time when you failed. Perhaps someone rejected you. Perhaps someone you trusted betrayed you. Perhaps you worked incredibly hard and still lost. Perhaps you watched another person achieve the dream you wanted while you remained behind. Perhaps you looked in the mirror and wondered whether you were capable of becoming anything more than what you currently were. If you have experienced that, listen carefully. Your pain does not automatically make you stronger, but what you choose to do with your pain can. Pain can make you bitter, or pain can make you wiser. Failure can make you ashamed, or failure can make you determined. Rejection can make you hide, or rejection can teach you that your worth cannot depend entirely upon somebody else's approval. The wound can become your prison, or it can become the place where your strength begins. There is something inside every human being that wants to avoid suffering. We want comfort. We want certainty. We want guarantees. But imagine a person who never experiences resistance. How would that person develop courage? Imagine a person who never fails. How would that person develop resilience? Imagine someone who never loses anything. How would that person understand gratitude? Sometimes the obstacle is not interrupting your journey. Sometimes the obstacle is the journey. And that changes the way you look at your life. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of saying, "This is destroying me," you begin saying, "How can I grow through this?" Instead of saying, "I can't," you begin saying, "I have not learned how yet." That small shift in consciousness can redirect an entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a battle taking place inside every one of us. One voice says, "Stay where you are. It is safer here." Another voice says, "Get up. There is more inside you." One voice says, "What if you fail?" Another says, "What if you succeed?" One voice says, "People will laugh at you." Another says, "What will happen if you spend your entire life trying to impress people who are not living your life?" One voice says, "You are not ready." Another says, "You become ready by beginning." You have to decide which voice gets the final word. Because your mind can become either your greatest prison or your greatest instrument. If you constantly tell yourself that you are weak, you will begin searching for evidence of your weakness. If you constantly tell yourself that you are incapable, every difficulty will become proof. But when you begin to challenge your assumptions, something remarkable happens. You discover that many of the walls around you were never made of stone. They were made of belief. And beliefs can change. You are not every thought that enters your mind. You are not every fear you experience. You are not every mistake you have made. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. And you are certainly not the opinions other people have formed about you. There is a deeper self beneath all of that. And success requires you to meet that self. Not the artificial version of yourself you display to impress the world. The real one. The one who exists when nobody is watching. Because if you build your entire life around appearing successful, you may eventually discover that you are deeply unhappy inside a life that looks impressive from the outside. That is not success. Success without meaning is merely sophisticated emptiness. What good is reaching the top of the mountain if you discover you climbed the wrong mountain? What good is having money if you have no peace? What good is having influence if you have no character? What good is being admired if you do not respect the person you see in the mirror? We must therefore ask a deeper question. What does success mean to me? Perhaps success means becoming financially independent. Perhaps it means building a business. Perhaps it means becoming a great parent. Perhaps it means helping your community. Perhaps it means mastering a craft. Perhaps it means creating something that outlives you. Perhaps it means becoming the first person in your family to change the direction of generations. Whatever it means, you must discover it for yourself. Because if you don't define success, the world will define it for you. And the world will gladly sell you a definition. It will tell you that success is what you can buy. It will tell you success is how many people know your name. It will tell you success is how beautiful your life looks on a screen. But appearances can be deceptive. A person can have everything and still feel empty. Another person can possess very little and still wake up with a profound sense of purpose. So do not chase an image. Chase meaning. Chase mastery. Chase character. Chase contribution. Chase the version of yourself that can look back at your life and say, I did not waste the opportunity I was given. That is success. And once you understand that, you understand the importance of discipline, because dreams are beautiful. But dreams without discipline are fantasies. Everyone loves motivation. People watch inspiring videos. They read books. They listen to speeches. They feel energized for an hour. And then tomorrow comes. The alarm rings. The excitement disappears. The work remains. This is where lives separate. Motivation says, I feel like doing it. Discipline says, I will do it, even when I don't feel like it. That is the difference. There will be mornings when you don't feel inspired. There will be days when nobody applauds you. There will be weeks when progress appears invisible. There will be moments when you wonder whether your effort is producing anything at all. Those are the moments that matter. Because anyone can continue when success is visible. The real question is whether you can continue when success is invisible. Can you practice when nobody is watching? Can you work when nobody believes in you? Can you remain committed when the results are delayed? Can you keep walking when the road becomes boring? Because greatness is rarely dramatic. It is usually repetitive. The athlete practices the same movement thousands of times. The writer writes, when inspiration disappears. The entrepreneur solves the same category of problems again and again. The student studies when friends are having fun. The musician practices still that nobody will ever applaud. The successful person often does ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. And that consistency compounds. One day of discipline may seem insignificant. One page of reading may seem insignificant. One workout may seem insignificant. 1 hour of focused work may seem insignificant. One decision to avoid a destructive habit may seem insignificant. But life is built from insignificant moments. A single brick does not look like a house, but keep laying bricks. Eventually, there is a structure. Your habits are the bricks of your future. Every day you are constructing something. The question is, what are you building? You may not see the result today, but your future self is living inside the consequences of your present choices. That thought should wake us up. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now. Imagine that person standing before you. Would they thank you? Would they say, "Thank you for not giving up"? Would they say, "Thank you for studying when you wanted to quit"? Thank you for protecting your health. Thank you for developing your skills. Thank you for walking away from people who were destroying you. Thank you for taking that opportunity. Thank you for believing that our life could become different. Or would your future self look at you with disappointment and say, "Why did you keep postponing the life we could have lived?" That meeting is coming. You may not know the exact date, but it is coming. Every day you move toward it. And this is why your choices matter. Your future is not built by one enormous decision. It is built by thousands of small decisions. The decision to get up, the decision to begin, the decision to learn, the decision to forgive, the decision to focus, the decision to try again, the decision to leave, the decision to stay, the decision to become. Ladies and gentlemen, failure deserves a new definition. We have been taught to fear failure as if it were a verdict. But failure is not a verdict. It is information. Failure tells you something. It tells you that your current approach did not work. Good. Now you know something you did not know. Before, try another approach. Adjust. Learn. Continue. Thomas Edison did not need thousands of failures to prove that he was a failure. He needed thousands of experiments to learn what would not work. The distinction is profound. When you separate your identity from your outcomes, failure becomes less terrifying. You can say, "I failed," without saying, "I am a failure." That difference protects the human spirit. Because your life is bigger than any single result. You can lose money and rebuild. You can lose an opportunity and find another. You can be rejected and become stronger. You can fall and rise. You can make mistakes and become wiser. You can begin again. And perhaps the ability to begin again is one of the greatest forms of human power. Look at nature. The tree does not apologize when winter comes. It does not say, "I am finished." It releases what it cannot keep. It becomes still. And when the conditions change, it begins again. Perhaps you also need seasons of release. Maybe some things must leave your life for the next chapter to begin. Old identities, old habits, old excuses, old relationships, old fears, old definitions of who you are. Sometimes the person you need to become cannot coexist with the person you keep pretending to be. Growth requires death. Not physical death, but psychological death. The death of the identity that says, "This is all I can be." The death of the belief that says, "People like me don't succeed." The death of the habit that says, "Tomorrow." The death of the excuse that says, "Someday." There is no someday. There is today. Today is the only place where action can occur. Yesterday is memory. Tomorrow is possibility. Today is power. So use it. Do not wait until you feel fearless. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement in the presence of fear. You do not need to know the entire path. You only need enough courage to take the next step. The person standing at the bottom of a mountain does not need to see every stone on the summit. They need to take the first step, then another, and eventually they look back and realize they have climbed farther than they ever imagined. That is how your future will be built. Step by step, day by day, choice by choice. Ladies and gentlemen, there is something I want you to understand about your potential. Your potential is not a promise. It is a responsibility. It is not enough to say, "I could become great." You must ask, what am I willing to sacrifice to become great? Because potential without action becomes regret. And regret is a strange kind of pain. Failure hurts. But regret can hurt differently. Failure says, "I tried and it didn't work." Regret says, "I wonder what would have happened if I had tried." Do not spend your life wondering. Build, learn, risk. Begin. Let yourself be a beginner. You will look foolish sometimes. You will make mistakes. People may laugh. Let them. People laughed at ideas before they became inventions. People doubted dreams before they became achievements. People criticize what they do not understand. But you do not need everyone's permission to pursue a meaningful life. You need conviction. You need patience. You need discipline. And you need the courage to continue. Your life is not a popularity contest. It is a calling. And perhaps your greatest responsibility is not to become better than somebody else. It is to become better than the person you were yesterday. Do not compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You do not know their battles. You do not know their sacrifices. You do not know what happened behind the scenes. Comparison can steal your attention from your own path. Look inward. Ask yourself, am I learning? Am I growing? Am I becoming more disciplined? Am I becoming kinder? Am I becoming stronger? Am I becoming more courageous? Am I becoming more useful to the people around me? Those are better questions. Because true success is not simply elevation. It is integration. It is bringing together your ambition and your character, your intelligence and your wisdom, your strength and your compassion, your dreams and your responsibilities, your outer achievements and your inner life. You do not want to become successful and lose yourself in the process. You want success to become an expression of who you truly are. That is why the inner journey matters so much. You can conquer cities and still be defeated by your own mind. You can accumulate wealth and still be poor in spirit. You can command an audience and still be unable to sit alone with yourself. So before you ask, how can I get more? Ask, who must I become? Who must you become to handle greater responsibility? Who must you become to handle greater wealth? Who must you become to handle greater influence? Who must you become to handle adversity without collapsing? Who must you become to succeed without becoming a slave to success? That is the real work, and nobody can do it for you. Your parents cannot do it. Your teachers cannot do it. Your friends cannot do it. A motivational speaker cannot do it. A book cannot do it. Someone can inspire you. Someone can guide you. Someone can open a door. But you must walk through it. You must choose. You must act. You must become. And there will be moments when you feel alone. Remember this. Being alone is not always the same as being lost. Sometimes, solitude is where you finally hear your own voice. In a world filled with noise, you need moments of silence. Turn off the noise. Put down the phone. Stop measuring yourself against strangers. Sit with yourself. Ask what you really want. Ask what you fear. Ask what you are avoiding. Ask what you would attempt if you knew you could not be embarrassed. And then listen, because sometimes the answer you need is already inside you. You have simply been too distracted to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, your future deserves your attention. Your future family deserves your discipline. Your future opportunities deserve your preparation. Your future self deserves your courage. There is a person you will become who depends on the decisions you make right now. Do not betray that person. If you have been procrastinating, begin. If you have been afraid, move anyway. If you have failed, learn. If you have been rejected, keep your dignity and continue. If you have lost your direction, pause and rediscover your purpose. If you have fallen, stand. If you have been told that you cannot, let your life become the answer, not with anger, not with hatred, with excellence. The most powerful response to doubt is not an argument. It is transformation. Become so disciplined that your excuses become embarrassed. Become so focused that distractions lose their power. Become so committed to your purpose that temporary discomfort cannot purchase your surrender. And remember, you do not have to change your entire life tonight. You only have to change your next decision. Make one better decision, then another, then another. That is how people change. That is how families change. That is how communities change. That is how generations change. One person decides that the old pattern will end with them. One person decides that their children will inherit opportunity instead of limitation. One person decides to become educated. One person decides to build. One person decides to heal. One person decides to lead. One person decides to refuse the sentence that circumstances have written for them. And suddenly, an entire future changes. Perhaps you are that person. Perhaps you are the turning point. Perhaps your life is not merely about you. Perhaps there are people you have not met yet who will benefit from the courage you develop today. Perhaps the business you build will employ someone who desperately needs an opportunity. Perhaps the knowledge you gain will help someone else. Perhaps your story of overcoming failure will become another person's reason not to quit. Perhaps your success will become proof that transformation is possible. This is why your life matters. Not because you must become famous, but because you have something to contribute. There is something only you can bring into the world in exactly the way you can bring it. Your experiences, your perspective, your skills, your imagination, your compassion, your courage, your story. Do not leave that contribution trapped inside you. Bring it forward. The world does not need another copy. It needs people who have done the difficult work of becoming themselves. So become disciplined, become courageous, become thoughtful, become useful, become resilient, become awake, become the person who no longer needs perfect circumstances before taking meaningful action. And when the future arrives, and it will arrive whether you are ready or not, let it find you prepared. Let it find you stronger. Let it find you wiser. Let it find you standing. Let it find you able to say, I did not waste my chance. Ladies and gentlemen, one day your life will become a story. There will be chapters you are proud of. There will be chapters you wish you could rewrite. There will be people who appear briefly and disappear. There will be victories nobody expected. There will be failures you thought would destroy you. And one day, you will look backward. When that day comes, I hope you do not measure your life only by what you possessed. I hope you measure it by what you became. I hope you remember the mornings when you refused to quit. I hope you remember the moments when you chose courage over comfort. I hope you remember the opportunities you pursued, even when you were afraid. I hope you remember the people you helped. I hope you remember the obstacles you turned into lessons. I hope you remember that you were not perfect, but you kept growing. That is a life worth living. That is success. Success is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to give your struggle meaning. Success is not becoming someone else. It is becoming more fully yourself. Success is not proving that you are better than everyone around you. It is proving that your past does not have absolute authority over your future. Success is not reaching a destination and finally becoming worthy. You are already worthy of beginning. Success is becoming responsible for the extraordinary possibility hidden inside your ordinary life. So when you leave this room today, do not simply feel inspired. Do something. Make the call. Open the book. Bropt the plan. Leak for the opportunity. Start the business. Return to the work. Apologize. Forgive. Exercise. Study. Create. Practice. Begin again. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is a myth. The moment you have is this one, and this moment is enough to begin. Your life can change because of one decision. Your family can change because of one decision. Your future can change because of one decision. So make the decision. Decide that your fear will not be your master. Decide that your past will not be your prison. Decide that your circumstances will not become your identity. Decide that your potential will not remain unused. Decide that you will become the person your future requires. And when the road becomes difficult, and it will, remember why you started. When people doubt you, remember your purpose. When progress becomes slow, remember that roots grow underground, before trees rise into the sky. When you fail, remember that failure is an event, not an identity. When you become tired, rest, but do not surrender. And when you finally achieve something you once thought impossible, do not stop. Look at the next horizon. Because success is not a finish line. It is a way of living. It is the continuous decision to grow, to learn, to serve, to build, to become. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is not waiting somewhere far away. It is being created right now, in your thoughts, in your habits, in your choices, in the conversations you have with yourself when nobody else can hear. You are standing at the edge of a future that has not yet been written. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing about being alive. The page is still blank. Your past may have written several chapters, but it does not own the pen. You do, so write something worthy. Write a story of courage. Write a story of discipline. Write a story of resilience. Write a story in which you fell but rose. Write a story in which fear appeared but did not win. Write a story in which adversity knocked on the door and found someone willing to answer. Write a story in which your greatest wounds became sources of wisdom. Write a story in which you did not merely dream about a better future. You built it. Because somewhere beyond today is a version of your life that you cannot yet see. A stronger you, a wiser you, a freer you, a more purposeful you. And that person is not waiting for luck. That person is waiting for you to make the choices that will create them. So stand up. Take responsibility. Take the risk. Do the work. Fuffs yourself. Fuffs off your fear. Fuffs off the uncertainty. And walk forward, not because you are guaranteed success, but because you have decided that your life is worth the attempt. And perhaps, in the end, that is what success truly means. Not that you conquered the world, but that you refused to abandon yourself. Not that you became perfect, but that you continued becoming. Not that you never fell, but that every time life pushed you into the darkness, you found a reason to search for the light. And when your final chapter is eventually written, may you be able to look back without asking, "What could I have been?" May you instead smile and say, "I became, I tried, I grew, I served, I loved. I struggled, I fell, I rose, and I used the life I was given." Ladies and gentlemen, your better future is not a miracle waiting to happen. It is a responsibility waiting to be accepted. Your future is calling. Your potential is calling. Your purpose is calling. And the question is not whether you have what it takes. The question is whether you are willing to become the person who does. So go forward. Build when it is difficult. Believe when it is uncertain. Work when nobody is watching. Rise when you fall. And never forget that the greatest victory is not standing above others. It is standing above the limitations that once controlled you. The world may never know how many times you fought battles inside your own mind. It may never see the tears. It may never see the sacrifices. It may never understand the nights you wanted to quit. But one day, your life will reveal what your private battles created. And when that day comes, Let the evidence speak. Let your character speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your work speak. Let your life speak. Because the future belongs not to those who merely wish for change, but to those courageous enough to become the change. Your future is not promised. It is built. Your success is not given. It is earned. Your potential is not fulfilled by wishing. It is fulfilled by action. And your story is not over. Not even close. The next chapter is waiting. The pen is in your hand. Now write, and make it unforgettable.